is the type of person I am. So I don't think there's any real character of a Bakau politician, if one could say. We have always been an opposition. So we've always had the likes of Dembo by force, who was very vocal in the parliament. You had the likes of Rambo Jara, who was very vocal. But Rambo was also youth president of the UDP, of the main opposition party. Dembo by force was also campaign manager of the main opposition party.
Correct.
Today, you have a parliamentarian from Bakau who is very capable and, is very grounded, locally in the town, but he's not loud. People don't even know him that much, and that's Asan Toure. So I believe everybody has their character, but we need to also understand context. In the time that Rambo and the likes of Dembo by force were active in politics for the opposition, it was very difficult to be opposition. So you had to be loud to be heard. You had to be, astute to be seen, and you had to stand out. But today we are lucky that we are not in that situation where we have to put these things forward. And times have evolved, and political strategies have evolved. And I do believe that today we cannot let our politics be grounded in the issues of noise and and vibrancy, but we must look at how do we solve issues and problems. No disrespect to the people that were there before us, but
Correct.
I keep saying that the older generation fought with their might. It's our time to fight with our mind. And that has been my, my position for the longest of times.
Correct. I mean, you're a youth, no doubt about that. And an upcoming, I think I said something like an upcoming youth leader. And I think it was Sanabande that said, correct me and said, Mr. Jang, upcoming? So I have to say youth leader. Now, and you also say that you're a student of history. Looking at,
I think what I'll do, let me use my phone. I've been using my computer, but the network has not been the best.
Very cooperative. Okay.
I think what I'm going to do, let me just use my phone.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah. So, Sariang, we want to wish, again, a happy birthday to brother Saul Baji.
Yeah,
today
I saw that, man.
His birthday, and we want to give him a shout out. So, and I'm gonna call the madam to make sure that she put together a nice dinner tonight, a birthday dinner. So definitely, yeah, bro. It looks like the internet. How was sabote affaire?
Brother man, Saul, happy birthday, my brother man.
Yeah, so let me just use my phone. I was trying to use my computer, but I mean it wasn't the best. Yeah.
No,
so let me just use
it looks like the phone. You sounded better, but so what the hell? My question again. You're a student of history.
Yeah.
And you've learned about the older generation politicians, the Sadauda Kairaba, Jawaras, the Dembo by force, of course, will be in that category. And so, being a student of history, what is there that you think they have done that you guys can do differently? In other words, looking at going all the way back from independence, you being a youth leader, do you think we still pursue their way of politics, the way things, or do we do things a little bit differently? How do you read that? Do we need to have this paradigm shift, or do we just reinforce the direction? Because sometimes we romanticize these politicians. We say, oh, our forefathers were, people with reputation. They were honest, and this lack of corruption. We tend to romanticize it. How do you see those people in?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so in history, we have divided the African political leaders into three segments. You've got the post-colonial African leaders, you've got the military regimes, because you look at the time frames where coup d'etats and military governments came into place, it was very similar across the continent. And now you have the democratization process, or the democratized leaders. So I like to be realistic. Africa was not utopia, even pre-colonial Africa. It was like any society that had its shortcomings and had its strengths. I have always, argued that the biggest mistake our leaders did, especially post-colonial African leaders, was that we never created nation states. And that has come back to haunt us. This is even why when we talk about patriotism, it's an abstract feeling or it's an abstract being for a lot of us. For example, if I ask you, Sariang, and I ask you, Musa, what does it mean to be Gambian? Apart from the geographical location we share, there's not a lot that we can talk about that is unique amongst us. So we never really built nations. What we did was we just replaced the colonial leaders, the colonialists, in government or in our political and social settings. So nothing really changed. And I think that has been one of our biggest setbacks as a continent. And until we are ready to correct these mistakes that our leaders have done, it will be difficult for us to develop as a people. And this is the decolonization process. I see no reason why Gambia, Senegal, and Mali, for example, should not have something in common. Because, for example, I try to use myself as an example. When I went to Ivory Coast, I couldn't speak French, but when I went into the market and I had someone speaking Malinke and Jula, I clicked, and it was like I've met my family.
Correct.
And these are issues where you talk about the sense of belongingness, and these are things when you talk about relativity, and this is why we have found it very difficult, because you have brought people from different ways of life. You brought people from different cultures and brought them into a heterogeneous society and just asked them to function like nothing is wrong. It's always going to be conflict, and that is why we have found ourselves in the position we have found ourselves in. So, and I don't like to romanticize the issue of post-colonial Africa. Is that yes, all the problems we've had are based on a few reasons. I believe that one, for example, Nkrumah spoke about the one-party system, and he said that one of the reasons he had attributed, development to one-party system is that because at the time we didn't have a lot of educated people. That's one. Two, or formally educated people. Two, we didn't have a lot of people who understood the ideals of government. So if you had these people separated and divided within political lines, it would have been difficult to develop the continent. So for me, I believe that we must look at changing our political systems, we must look at changing our economic systems, and we must redefine what it means to be African. Are we going to go by patriotism for neo-colonialist constructs, or are we going, which are our countries? And this is why today you have xenophobia. This is why today you have Gambians, blaming Nigerians for everything that happened in this country, even when Nigerians had nothing to do with it. Right. This is why, for example, you go to South Africa, they are blaming Zimbabweans and Nigerians for the wrongs that are happening in their country. Why? Because we have held so tightly to neo-colonial constructs because this is why, for me, I do believe that nationalism to some extent is toxic, because you are becoming attached to a creation that is not even real. And unfortunately, this is where we have found ourselves in. So for me, I like to criticize post-colonial African, with all due respect to them, understanding the situation they found themselves in. But I think they could have done a better job in defining what our nations meant. So instead of building nations, they just built states that the colonialists had left with them. You come to the second aspect where you have military rulers. Because of the problems I've mentioned in the first part, made a lot of these military rulers claim they wanted to decolonize the continent. And a lot of them came in, you had the better ones. You had the likes of Nkrumah, you had the likes, you had the likes of Cabral, you had the likes of Samore Michael, you had the likes like this guy from Guinea, Burkina Faso, what's his name again? I forgot. Thomas Sankara, so all of them were, good ones, but you had a lot of terrible ones. When you talk about the Valentino Strassers, you talk about the James, you talk about, a lot of them. So they had sold dreams, because the people were also fed up with the post-colonial leaders, and populism came to be the order of the day. So whatever the people wanted to hear, which was to fight corruption, to give people equality, they propelled, and they made themselves look like revolutionaries, especially at the time the Cold War was at its height. It was either you were with the Soviets or you were with the West. So they had to be with people who would support them. Now we're in the democratized era of a lot of African countries, but our mistake is that we haven't learned from the past, and we haven't learned from our, from history. And I think a lot of us are repeating the same mistakes. For example, when you talk about Gambia, we wanted to get rid of Jammeh, but didn't have a plan post Jammeh. And this is why we are in the position we are today.
Well, we did have a plan, but let me let my man come in here. We have a plan that was hijacked. But go ahead, Sariang. We'll come back to that.
Kemo, thank you very much. One key thing that I like, and I think I'm going to take you on this one right here. When you talk about, we talk about the concept, somehow in abstract, about democracy or fighting corruption and, hiding our institutions. Now, obviously, you have a good resume from the start all the way when we had elections in 2026. But now, holistically or in hindsight, where do you think the problem was? So you talk about at the very end, you said we took Jammeh on, he went, but we didn't have a solid plan post Jammeh. What caused that? What was the main reason? Why?
When I talk about that, being on the ground, you realize that in 2016, we found ourselves in a quagmire in the sense that the United Democratic Party was the biggest party at the time. And you had other parties who were influential, but they didn't have the power to push for the changes that we wanted. But I've always said this, that whenever the opposition has united in the Gambia, we have had success. In 1962, when with the referendum for independence, the PPP won when they had a united front. In 2016, we won when we had a united front. So I do believe that if we put our differences aside, a lot of times we come up victorious as a people. But the problem with 2016, in my opinion, is that we never really had a plan. For example, the idea that the coalition was not even a government in waiting, that it took so long for cabinet to be built itself shows you how unready we were at the time. Two, we had a lot of people who, you have brought people on the table who were from different ideologies, who came from different backgrounds and saw politics in different ways. And then you brought them to a table for one common enemy or one common reason. Once that reason was out of the window, it opened up, the same problems because they were not addressed from the start. Even the formation of the coalition, when you look at it, because I wouldn't say I was there when everything was happening, but I was also active thanks to the guidance and the support of people like Alaji S. Dabo, who had also shown us the way that, you could do this, you could do that. It opened up the way for all of us to see. I can tell you that a lot of parties came to that convention without even meeting of the 70 delegates that they needed because they didn't have the people. So, for example, that was an issue. Two, I have always said that, and I have held to this, that nowhere have we seen a convention being held to form a coalition when one party and the others are not at the same pedestal. People can disagree, but I believe that what we have said is that what we have seen all over the world is that when coalitions are being built, the smaller ones do join the bigger one. And this is up for debate, and people can have their differences on that. I believe that these were the issues that we had because it was sort of city just for the sake of it, because they realized that some parties or some institutions at the time were at a disadvantage. So we came forward, and I don't even believe that the coalition thought they were going to win until the last day of the meeting or the campaign, which was in Bakau. I believe in Barrow had said that in a speech that was the day he realized, okay, this is actually doable. So it just showed that we were not ready as a people at the time. And when we won, we couldn't set up a cabinet. It took almost 3 weeks to come up with a cabinet. From there, we saw how we had issues of agreeing on some of the things that we wanted to do. So that's why I believe that the coalition really didn't have a plan. Our plan was to get rid of Jammeh And that is why we found ourselves where we found ourselves.
All right. Thank you, Kemo. I wanted to follow up on you've said something about the parties coming together, and I think I've been I've been part of the struggle for a very long time, since early part of the 90s. We've tried that. I mean, the biggest party leading the small ones, but there was not much headway of per se, right? There was not much attraction when you put these leaders together in the same room to kind of draw a formula to take on Jammeh, and there was no agreement. I mean, I've attended several conferences. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
2016, somehow, you know, there was a convergence of thoughts, and there was one common denominator, which was Jammeh, and they took him out. Now, moving forward, from your perspective, no plan, or there was plan, and what lessons have we learned, and what lesson could we apply differently, maybe 2026 and beyond? Putting into perspective, we have to take responsibility where we drop the ball. We take ownership of it. But what have we learned, and what can we apply moving forward?
One of the points is that, and I think which has cost us a lot, is that nobody could have held Barrow accountable except the Gambian people, because he had resigned from any political institution he was part of. So it was difficult to hold any political party responsible for for President Barrow's actions. That's one. This is why I've always said that I do believe that the best coalitions are party-led coalitions, and at least there are people to hold accountable when things don't go right. That's one. Two, I believe that the other point we can learn from it is that to have a clearly written plan. Be it I don't think, for example, the whole idea of even going contrary to what the Constitution said when it came to how many years the head of state was supposed to sign, and making it an issue of morality itself, bigger raises questions that people within the coalition, and all of us knew that this is what the Constitution said, but we had come up with another dimension of how many years an individual should serve, and based it on a gentleman's agreement. Thirdly, for example, like I said, equity was very important in the way things were done. And I do believe that we were not equitable when it came to how to run government. While a lot of people would say that coalitions all over the world do not last, but I do believe that we had an opportunity that could have pushed Gambia into the dimension we wanted it to be. But unfortunately, again, egos, because a lot of parties, like I said, couldn't even meet up with the 70 delegates that were supposed to be at the convention, that they had to get people off the street, they had to get people from other parties to be at the convention. And when we had the government, you wanted all these parties to be equal. I felt that was unfair to majority of the parties who had a say in the coalition. So I do believe that it is important that honesty, takes center stage when it comes to coalition building. I do believe that, making sure that egos do not collide is also very important. And also, thirdly, not to personalize issues, because unfortunately, at the time, like I mentioned, political parties were not institutionalized. And a lot of political parties at the time, and up till today in Gambia, have a face as a personality than having the institution of the party. So, for example, we spoke more about Halifa and Dabo, for example, than we spoke about PDIS and UDP. So all of these things were issues I think we can learn from, to see that when it is like when you have a company. When it's a limited liability company, it is better to deal with stakeholders and shareholders than when you have, when you are dealing with a sole proprietorship. So I do believe that we must also look at political parties as institutions and deal with them as institutions, and not personalize a lot of issues. So I think, in the grand scheme of things, egos had come forward, and the whole idea, had taken, a backseat.
All right. Thank you.
I know that sometimes we don't want to go back and relitigate these issues, but I think it's absolutely important, especially if we are ever going to move forward. You said there was no plan. I totally disagree. I think there was a plan. You said you're bringing about parties that have ideological differences. I'm not sure how much of a difference. What we knew at that time was we had a tyrant that we need to get rid of, and we're going to replace it with democracy. There was a memorandum of understanding. We couldn't agree on every aspect, but at least for the big picture, there was a memorandum of understanding that stipulated, because we knew at that time that who is going to be the flag bearer was the one that derailed us going all the way back to 2006. So a system was in place. Every party will bring 70 delegates. Everybody understood that. We agreed to that. We all also knew that there is going to be a transition government. You mentioned something about the constitution was 5 years. They knew that too. That's why they said if they win, changes will be made as far as the law is concerned. And when the change is made, after 3 years, elections are going to be held. Some people will say, unfortunately, after we won, people betrayed the very memorandum of understanding that they signed for. And that's where the problem is. Not a question of plan, but a question of executing the plan. It became very convenient for parties, whether it's the United Democratic Party, whether it's the NRP, the Ahmadbas, whether it's my party, whether it's even Halifa Saleh. Everyone started to see this as like, how am I going to exploit this situation to help my party? Do you think I'm wrong in my assessment, how I'm seeing it?
I don't think it's entirely wrong, but I do believe that you have mentioned what I said. We wanted Jammeh out, and that was the plan. But post Jammeh was something we never really.
That was not the plan. We wanted Jammeh out, yes, but we had a plan to get him out, yes. And I don't want you to gloss over the memorandum of understanding, because there was something that we signed to. There was something that talked about each party, how many delegates you're going to bring to the convention.
Yeah, but then that was all that was all during Jammeh's time, and that was all what was going to lead to Jammeh leaving. Mm-hmm. But after Jammeh, for example, the convention was pre 2016 December.
Correct.
So the having the 70 delegates was pre-election. Mm-hmm. Having parties come together but we didn't even speak about how we were going to run for parliamentary elections, for example, post Jammeh. Right. And that is where the problem started, because you don't expect me to build my party for 20, 30 years, being the main opposition party, competing and making sure that I was keeping government in check, and you're telling me that put members in the house but not under your banner. Where is the polity that we have been asking for? And this is why I mentioned, and I am glad that you mentioned that everybody was trying to exploit the coalition for their own gains.
Correct.
Because, for example, if you would blame and say the UDP had done something, but there were other parties who people had held at high regard who were also there for their own interests. And we're looking at ways of making sure that they found themselves as a marching order with the UDP. And correct. Every part, and like you, and I am happy also you mentioned that having a flag bearer for the coalition in Gambia, even during NAD or even pre-NAD, has been the issue. Mm-hmm. Why is it that we cannot accept the fact that we all cannot be major parties? Mm-hmm. And it's fine. There are parties in the world that don't even want to be major parties. I've seen parties in countries, for example, Britain First, you talk about Nigel Farage today. Mm-hmm. He knows he's not a major party. He didn't compete in every aspect of the United Kingdom. He competed in places he knew he would win because he knew this is where his strength lies. For example, you talk about when you go to Nigeria, the APC we have today was a collaboration of ADC, which was a Yoruba party led by Tinubu, the current president, and Muhammad Buhari had his own party in the north. They knew that their strengths, or for example, when you talk about Kankwaso's movement, NNPC today, they didn't win any other place, and they didn't campaign any other place. They campaigned in Kano because they knew that is where their strength lies.
Correct.
There's nothing wrong in political parties knowing that this is where, I'm not a national party. Mm-hmm. I'm a regional party, for example. Today, we're seeing it in the Gambia with NAT, which is the Noto Alliance. They don't compete anywhere else. They compete in Fonyi because they know that is where their strength lies. But it would be rather unfair to tell me that, okay, for example, let's say the Green Party in the US and the Democratic Party are at the same pedestal. It's not the same. So this is why I made mention that we had treated parties unfairly. Because why? Because we knew that we were in a desperate situation. And this is where I also mentioned sincerity. What all you have mentioned was pre-December December 1st.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It was obviously it was pre-2016, but there was a plan in place. These political parties were meeting because we all understand. You see, you are absolutely right. You kept talking about the big party, and that anywhere you go, any coalition has to be a party led for it to be viable and credible. We've tried that going all the way back to 2000. Actually, going all the way back past 1996. It never worked. It was a problem. The 2001 election, you could say there was a party-led coalition, but it wasn't able to succeed when PPP basically backed the United Democratic Party. It did not work. When we came in 2006, it became apparent that, look, the only way this guy can be removed, if we can come together under one banner, forget about our differences, get rid of him, and bring about the democracy that we all want. Something was put in place. Something. Now, you can call it, was it fair? Was it sincere? But at the end of the day, people signed on the dotted line because we had to get rid of the man. What happened, though, they never recognize or respect what was signed. Ahmad Ba was basically saying, Anafunko sign. All of a sudden, amnesia. So what I'm saying is, the coalition failed because there was betrayal, and it was that betrayal.
But then that
betrayal that we continue to nurture up till today.
Yes, but Mr. Jen,
years, the man is now sitting for 20 years. I'm not from Dore, Kemo. I'm not
Mr. Jen, why the point Bumala Munanyoti accountable is because we were not able to show anything definitive. We were all basing this on moral issues. There was nothing binding me, and that is my point.
But bro, how are you going to tell them? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, but that is the problem.
No, tell me realistically, what is there that these people could have done to hold these people accountable? If somebody decided, you know what, everything that I signed on the dotted line, I don't really respect it, there's nothing you can do about it. Because like you said, we have a constitution that says the term is 5 years. Lulu, you can't, there's nothing you can do except
exactly. So exactly. So Lulu is my point. So we all knew things like that, but then we still went on to say, okay, Nakis have 3 years. Man, I believe in a pre-coalition agreement, Bobu, for a problem in Dori. Like, and I will continue to say that, man, I believe we could have done a better job in organizing the coalition 2016. Yes, possibly, we were on the ground, but you know, we also had ears, if I'd say, for decisions were being made. Because I do remember, sir, how it was difficult to get Aissatou Touré on the on the team. I do remember how Bundeme si Mama Kande for Mujan coalition. Remember now Wahimwa. Yes. So understand that. So we were part and parcel of the Mansi convention. We man for one.
Yes.
Understand that. And I can tell you, for example, a lot of people who voted at that convention came from 1 or 2 parties. The political parties are going to fit in delegates for that. So you definitely and more than Manila, everything we signed on those dotted lines was what will prepare us for December 1st. But it was nothing about what we would do after December 1st. Because even after December 1st, election came for parliamentary election. At that time, then Dorondiwa, land lenyo, fan lenyo, and man, I stand to the position being a UDP jail. What would we have done if Baro Buhamnela Dore be facing members of parliament? We couldn't hold them accountable. And Kuneka moy them because Kokos do am. They were all going to be independent members of parliament, and whoever could have done whatever you want. So Nico UDP and all parties then your day. Because then do am Safinga Ngaiweru. President Baro would have made this country a one-party state. So more than Manelane, we didn't have a plan post 2020, post December 1st. Every plan that was written on that agreement, lu def leading to that election. But suñu winee lu def amuñ loolu. The only thing we had was a campaign promise, civil service reform, security sector reform, restructuring of economics, because the economy low rek lañ doon campaign on the street. But even boobu sax there was no manifesto pour wane naka lañ ko defee. Moo tax ma ne la amuñ plan. So we were just campaigning for it.
Let my man come in. But one thing though we can all agree to, plan or no plan, thank God we got rid of the tyrant.
Oh yeah. And man dama dey wax lolu sane, even some time ago, because Mike is on just the anniversary of the 2 police officers who were shot. And I remember during that time, suma bena had my boy man dama regret voting for Barrow. Man I go, man, no matter what, no matter how he be, man, I would never regret voting Yaya Jammeh out.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Brother Maron.
Kemo, thank you very much. I'm gonna ask you, because I saw a lot of comments, and I told you you're gonna be on the hot seat today. So we got to get this going now. We have to get this knocked out today, big time. So, what do you have to say to this? Because you mentioned something here very, very critical. The 3 years, plan or no plan, 3 years versus 5 years. And I've seen there was a plan in place, but UDP betrayed the coalition. Kemo, is it true that UDP betrayed the coalition? And, we have the courts. The only person who could have honored that 5 years was Barrow. But there were other members too within the coalition who could, if he did not honor the 5 year, 3 years, they could take the court. So what I'm asking you is it true? And what is your response to that allegation saying that UDP betrayed the coalition?
I think it goes back to what I was saying, that everybody had their interest getting into 2021. 2016. And it was up to us to put those interests aside to be able to push the ideas that we want. But why is it that nobody says that Doi betrayed the coalition because Doi failed to take a position in cabinet? Don't we think that we would have needed their expertise in cabinet to help and support steer the executive? Granted, people will say, okay, they took legislative positions. And yes, that's fine. That is also another valuable arm of government. But nobody has raised the issue why Lutah Lolo Amun. Going further, I don't believe the UDP betrayed the coalition. The UDP had put its position forward, like every political party would put its position forward of what they wanted to do and how they wanted the coalition run. This is why, as I said, if we had a documentation that said how the coalition was going to run, we wouldn't have found ourselves in that position. But because everybody was let to do whatever they wanted at their free will, some were saying that we should go into the parliamentary elections the way we wanted. Some were saying that no, them through party tactical alliance. Some were saying that okay, so everything was disjointed, and people did what they wanted to do. And I believe a lot of times people say the UDP, this was a UDP government. I asked the question, was it a UDP government when we only had 3 people or 3 principals in cabinet? When PPP, for example, had 2 people in cabinet. So if people are going to be honest to ourselves, nobody can tell you how will the parliamentary election determine a betrayal of the coalition 2016. Nobody can give you this answer. We just say, well, UDP wanted to go, on their own. And yes, granted, even if we had to repeat the election today, I would support that position that the party took to make sure that we had, our members in parliament, and we had our caucus, and we could control our caucus, because then you could hold people accountable. But imagine, like I said, if we had to go into that parliamentary election as independent candidates, and what would we have been able to achieve? Nothing, absolutely. So for me, I still hold on to the position that the UDP did not betray the coalition. It was a single individual who wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he did it. And this is why we are in the predicament we are today. It has nothing to do with the UDP, but rather President Barrow not upholding his position and doing whatever he wanted to do. And the UDP cannot be blamed for that.
Okay, thank you, Kemo. But now here, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. So, but Kemo, I think the reason why a lot of folks are saying UDP betray the coalition, and because Barrow was a byproduct of UDP, he emanated from the party of UDP, and one of the key was majority, of, say, yes, you're correct that there was only three ministries from UDP, granted. But how were the appointments done? And you have more information, because we need to shed lights on these things, and where the pitfalls are, we need to acknowledge them and learn from them, and hopefully we apply them in the future. That way we don't have to. Because you mentioned something that I totally and wholly agree with you. The issues that we're dealing with today, say when the coalition came into government, there were issues that they could have been tackled on in parliament and all that, but they did not. It did not happen. Why? And if he had to do a major course correction from your vantage point, what will that be?
I do believe that, like I mentioned, from 2017, we've heard President Barrow himself saying that he had meetings with Fabakary Tombong-Jatta, where Fabakary Tombong-Jatta had told him that if you want us to work together, you have to sack the likes of Usainu Dabo and Amadou Sane. We've also seen how within the coalition government, we saw how the betrayal within started from an earlier stage, and we have seen everything. And the biggest misconception is that people have that once President Barrow came into government, all he did was appoint members of the UDP. This is the greatest fallacy I've ever heard, because governments are continuations. People that have been in government in Jammeh's time are still the people that are in government. They're the ones heading the yes, they are the ones heading the departments. They're the ones directors in our offices, and they're the ones who are still working. So the biggest misconception, and it is something that has been pushed for the longest of time by oppositions to the UDP, is that Dabo made sure that UDP members were people in government. And I can tell you that even Dabo's family members, some of them were angry with him because he did not appoint them in government. And I've seen people who have left the UDP and are members of Dabo's family because of issues like that. So I think that's a big misconception. And when you talk about, and when you counter that point, what they come up with is okay. Let us look at the foreign service. Foreign service, again, Dabo does not make appointments. These appointments go through PMO, and PMO finds Gambians who are worthy to work in foreign service, and then they appoint them to. So again, it is the central government and not the UDP who is appointing these individuals. So for me, I keep saying that I do believe that most of the time, we just try to find excuses, and we try to find people to blame for most of the issues that we're faced with, rather than tackling most of our issues head on. Going further, where my position will always be that once we are able to build strong institutions, we will be able to fight most of the problems that we're faced with today. The reason why today we're talking about not having a parliament that can hold the president to account is because we don't have very strong institutions. The reason today people don't have faith in the judiciary is because we don't have strong institutions. Today, for example, America didn't go through a dictatorship because they were able to build institutions that could protect the rights and liberties of the people. We have seen it just happen in Senegal also, where institutions have been in play, and we have seen the results that they can give. Now, these are partisan issues, and people are going to have different opinions based on their biases. But for me, this has always been my position, that the buck stops with President Adama Barrow, and President Adama Barrow should be held accountable for his actions. So if we are trying to find a scapegoat and we want to blame the UDP, that's completely fine. But it will be a great disservice to move the goalpost and blame the UDP for President Adama Barrow's actions.
Thank you, Kemo. Go ahead, Musa.
Kemo, look, I mean, you're making good arguments, and I really do respect that. I'm just going to deal with this question, and then we can head on to the what's happening at KMC. And you mentioned the tactical alliance just after the presidential elections. We all know, I mean, going back, there was always this argument. I mean, process. How do you choose a flag bearer? How do you? That has always been the problem, going all the way back to 2006. We were able to take care of that process by basically saying, you know what, let's each party bring 70 delegates, because we wanted to make sure that no party has a monopoly. Remember, we were under a dictatorship. We wanted to get rid of that and bring in a new template. So to do that, people thought that equitability is important. And we all know African politics, incumbency means a lot. So we said, let the president run under an independent ticket so that one single party do an advantage over the other, which I think is reasonable. And it worked. And it ended up the biggest party actually having their candidate in place. The only thing that mattered was the process itself. When it came to the National Assembly, the argument is, like you said, because I remember even during the time of NAD, when we all ran during those by-elections, the candidate from Bakau was a UDP candidate, but just ran on the NAD. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a, even though it was a UDP
that was Dudu Kasajata.
Yes, and then an NRP, this was Ahmad Ba, also an NRP candidate, ran on the NAD. So there was no party identification per se, because we didn't want any party to have a leg up. So what people were saying, okay, for the National Assembly, let's have Khalifa Saleh run as an independent, not as a DOI candidate. Most people knew that most likely Khalifa Saleh would be the one chosen. If you go to Central Badibu, or if you go to some of these other constituencies, or Bakau, for instance, most likely it would have been a UDP candidate, but would only run under an independent candidate, because we wanted to make sure that let's start afresh. We're all independent, go into that National Assembly, make the changes that needs to be made, and put our democracy on a footing that all the parties will compete. United Democratic Party said, hell no, we're not going to do that, because if we do that, we're going to kill our party. And I think that's where the argument is. It wasn't so one can say the fairness of it or the lack of fairness of it, but that was the reality. It could have worked. You have a good number of people in the National Assembly, but it's not like our life is changing. Give me a break.
I mean, and I think that is, for example, I keep saying that, and I keep saying that even if, for example, a UDP government comes in, it's not going to stop you from eating your super kanja and your chew, because I mean that is the reality that we live with. So for me, I've always said that, and I continue to say that convention itself and trying to form an equality is where we had it wrong. And this is not a popular opinion, but I believe that we had to look at equity rather than equality. And if we were going to look at equity, it was what can each party bring onto the table, and we were supposed to.
A coalition.
Why popular problem be? No, I'm not missing it. Because what I am saying is that
that's what
popular problem be no.
So
which is understandable.
If we were to repeat the same problem, we will still be dealing with Jame.
Which is understandable. That is where we're having the problem if you are not ready to give people their due. Because you accept Lolo.
What do you mean?
I mean, you cannot deny the fact that the United Democratic Party is the biggest in the country.
But they ended up having their candidate to be the presidential candidate. Don't you see how it worked out? I think we missed Mr. Bojang there for a second.
Hello?
Yes. Kemo. Kemo Yangfa, I know it's frustrating. Kemo.
Hello?
Yes. You there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Are you hearing me?
Right. Yeah, I can hear you now. No, Lima, can you hear me?
Sorry, give me
Are
a
you there,
minute.
Kemo?
Let me just.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Kind of coming in and out a little bit.
Hello?
Yes, Kemo.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. We have to yeah.
Hold on. Kemo, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
That's why, but I can hear you guys.
We have to pivot to KMC, but we can all
But
agree.
you ask him a question, he has the right to respond.
Right,
so give
right.
him opportunity to respond to your question about equity and
Yeah,
equality. I think it's very, very fundamental. That's why you invited him here.
Yeah, so
you have the right to ask the question, but he has the right to answer the question.
All right. All right,
Go ahead.
Yeah, so from Mr. Young, man, I think the Fofuleng Amon problem because other parties were not ready to accept the reality on the ground. And I think we had the issue. Granted, UDP compromised. And I think a lot of props need to be given to the party for that. But people seem to feel, okay, well, what the hell, Guy Defenko, sorry for my language. But I think that's a big props finger hamne warnen ko UDP because they were ready to subdue and compromise for Dekabimuna, free from dictatorship.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
Yeah, so we had compromise in the convention, and gladly, it went well. Leggy, coming to the yes, it went well. So coming to the parliamentary elections, I felt it was very unfair for parties that will not be able to compete, asking parties they have built a foundation in constituencies. They have been able to fund their activities in those constituencies, to not put up candidates under that party's banner and to put up candidates under an independent banner. Granted, it could have worked, but there were heights. And with the way things have turned out in 2018, 2019, I think the UDP did the best thing not to go in that parliamentary election and putting up independent candidates. Because even with our people, we saw how we lost 8 members. So imagine if none of those members were held accountable or could tie their send position to the UDP or any other party. It would have been easy for them to all support Barrow and say, okay, we are all coalition members of parliament. We are not members of parliament on any party. So no party can tell us what to do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can beat a dead horse. I mean, but there are always going to be these differences, these arguments. What was the best way to do this? Now, if you're talking about 2020 hindsight, I don't think it would have been a bad idea because you're talking about if United Democratic Party is a bigger party, it doesn't matter whether they run under an independent banner or they run under their party banner. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be politics after that. And when each party would go on its own side, now we have an even playing field. Like I said, incumbency matter. There's a reason why NPP, why all of a sudden APRC has become, nobody is even talking about them, and NPP, a brand new party, nothing is different, it's way up there. It's because of the incumbency. But again,
not just that, I think we then they oversimplify that. And I think, man, I keep hearing things like that. And I think it all comes down to Lumarawa. We have not, and I know you're in the long run, you guys would ask me a question on that. But I'd like to say that we oversimplify these things. And I think it requires an anthropologist approach, but it also requires a very, detailed approach to how we need to look at how societies evolve. And political parties are societies, and we need to look at them as such, because you have a lot of different people with different characters in one organization, right? But what we have not done, and like I mentioned earlier, is that we keep the PPP died after Sadauda,
yes,
like Ronald.
Yes.
The NCP died after Sharif Mustafa.
Yes.
The APRC died after Yahya Jammeh.
Absolutely.
It is not just they have lost power. It's because they didn't build a political party. They built a movement.
Power has a lot to losing power has
no.
To do with it.
I agree. I agree. But for example, in contrast to other political parties from developed countries that have been able to build their polity,
Right.
why is it that every election that comes in the United States, both the Democrats and the Republicans have a chance of winning? Why is it that every election that comes in the United Kingdom, both the Conservative and the Labour Party has a chance of winning?
It's a different
Because
political structure. I mean, they have a two.
Because these but you have other parties in both America and England. But the point I'm trying to put across is that these countries have built their polity for over years and have built institutions. The Republican Party has been here for hundreds of years. The Democratic Party has been here for hundreds of years. It's the same thing in England. It's the same thing in other countries. We have not been able to build that. So it's not just about losing power, but it's about making sure that you are investing in transition. It's about making sure that you are investing in the leadership of your youth crop. It's about you are investing in the party itself as a secretariat and as an organization. And I believe that to some extent, this is why a lot of our parties die out and they don't leave. That's
the same argument that NPP is making of building their regional building. They want to make sure that the party will survive after Barrow. But we'll see, because most people will tell you if Barrow is gone, there won't be NPP left. But anyway, I want to shift a little bit. I want to shift back to KMC. Sorry. Bro, this is your second term as a councillor.
Yes.
I mean, you were elected the same time Barrow was elected to the presidency. And, I kind of like KMC. And sometimes I get a lot of flack on that. So, and the question is always, you guys have been there almost the same time, 7, 8 years?
Yes, we came in 2018. So
2018.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, because people will always confront me with that, what have they done that basically impacted the lives of the average KMC? Whether it was during the time of, the man that just passed away,
Yankuba
Koli. And people would say, not a whole lot of difference. What say you to that? That, look, these people is all talk. They can't really show you the beef. They'll tell you about the Bali project, but that's where it ends. What say you to that? What is that you guys have done differently, that one can look at and say, you know what? If these people were to come to power, everything will change. What say you to that?
So I like to say that one of the biggest ways you could tell a UDP government or how we are going to function is looking at our area councils. And I think the main idea that we have given a definition to what local government is in Gambia alone is success, in my opinion. We have not been the best, and there's still much more work to be done based on the challenges that we're faced with. But personally, after my time as a councillor in KMC, I can leave and look back and say that I am proud of what I have been able to achieve. For example, today, the reason why there's an argument of the Mbalit project is because there is a project. If there was not a project, we will not be talking about the Mbalit project. For the first time in the history of Kanifing Municipal Council, people are saying that their taxes are reflecting. Is the Mbalit project, excellent? No, it's not. It has its shortcomings. But have we been able to deliver? I believe we have been able to do so. And a lot of times people misunderstand these things. The Mbalit project is not a profit-making project, but it's a service delivery project. And we have been able to at least come up with a project that is dealing with waste collection. And also, when you talk about the employment that the Mbalit project has also been able to create, is that 172 young people within the KMC have benefited from employment as janitors, have benefited through employment as drivers and also ticket sellers. You talk about even waste management, not just Mbalit project. Today, it is during our time that the backwater dump site have been fenced. Mm-hmm. It is during our time that today, that even though fires are occurring, it is not as much as it used to occur, because we have built boreholes at the backwater dump site to act as, fire hydrants and also other things. And for me, I am happy that people are demanding, because it means that people are at least seeing progress. Mm-hmm. Before, nobody really demanded because there was no hope that you would even get anything. So for me, I believe that we have come a long way, and that is just one of them. You talk about the KEP project, for example, where we got 180 million from the European Union. During my first term as a councillor, we had the mayor's store. And during the mayor's store, as a youth representative, I had discussions with young people within the municipality, and they came up with issues of recreational facilities. And I am happy to say that during my time as a youth representative, I accompanied the mayor to Peterborough City Council, where we had a twinning and were able to benefit from this 180 million to build 8 parks within the municipality of Kanifing. Bakau is one of them. Kotu, we just launched 2 weeks ago. Last week we launched the Bundung. I opened the Bundung one. We opened the Kotu one. We've also opened the Afri Park, which is a basketball court, and and other recreational facilities within the KMC. We have opened 7, and Talinding also is about to be opened. So we have been able to provide recreational facilities for young people and adults within the Kanifing Municipal Council. So to say that we have not been able to do anything, I think we'll be malicious. We've also been able to plant 190,000 trees, but mostly mangroves, to be able to support the fish production of KMC or the Gambia at large. Considering that we know what the Chinese companies have done with the fisheries department by overfishing and other things, we have built or we have planted mangrove trees along the swamps of the River Gambia, especially around KMC, so as to provide a place for where fishes can lay eggs. You talk about the waste aid project also, where we have been able to build markets. For example, most of the sheds in Talinding have transformed into markets. One is Marseille Yafatunjai, which is which through Mbolo Association we have been able to build markets. We have done the Latrikunda Saviji expansion. We have also worked on building more canteens for young people within the KMC and the general public. We are also currently working on expansion of the Serekunda market, because we have seen that we have a shortage of spaces. You talk about road expansions also. One is Latkumba Low Road. It was fully funded by the KMC. You talk about Bakau Marina School Road and the Bakau Newtown Road that goes through MRC. It was in collaboration with Gamworks that we were able to do that. The Latrikunda Willingara Road also was through a partnership with Gamworks. Kololi Manjaya Road was also funded through a partnership with Gamworks. You talk about also annually we also rehabilitate roads that are inter-town, inter-village roads by putting gravel on it and also having graders to grade it. So you talk about the rehabilitation and expansion of health facilities also. The Bundum Maternity Hospital has also been expanded through our partnership with Gamworks. The Ibotan Community Center, which didn't function, now functions. You talk about the Talinding Clinic also has begun taking patients. Currently, myself, I am working on a project where we're expecting 65 hospital beds from the Gambia Swiss chapter. We are working on those things. You talk about the market expansions also. Larikunda Sabiji market. You talk about Larikunda German, rehabilitation market, the Bakau rehabilitation market, and a lot of other, the Marsengelo, Talinding Kautali market, Kotu Kware market, are all markets that we have worked on. It's also during our time that we have worked on addressing with GIS. These are innovative ways that can also propel development. In fact, that was the way that we knew that we had 38,000 households within KMC, and that we should be able to, beat this amount of rates and taxes if people pay their rates and taxes. Absolutely. You talk about the youth employment also. We were the first council who came up with a youth empowerment fund of giving $20 million to youth entrepreneurs. During COVID also, we gave out $1 million in cash to young people who had innovative ideas on how to continue social life, even during the era of COVID. You talk about the the UK. We also worked with the United Kingdom government through the High Commission here and IOM, where we gave 200 young people $150,000 each who were entrepreneurs. We also launched the Tuk Tuk project, which is the Bachka project, and most of these projects I launched as the youth representative within KMC. And also, you talk about the community centers we have rehabilitated. The Kotu Community Center is one that we have rehabilitated through partnership with Studio 71 and Babu Sise, who is a Hollywood actor. The place is being used to train young people on performing arts. We have
Right.
also rehabilitated the Talending Community Center, where women are being taught to sew and other fashion designing skills. The Bakau Community Center is still being built. So these are just things I can get off, just speak about off head.
Absolutely.
And this is different from the financial support we give, the 91 balls we gave during the last Navetan to all the zones in KMC, the support we give to other young people, artists and other people. So for people to say we haven't done a lot, I mean, I am happy that the ambition of Gambians has gone up and they are demanding. And I think that's a good thing. But I think it would be dishonest to say that the talent